Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting stuff to get into today.
We do. We're looking at a piece from Deloitte Insights called Accelerating Government Efficiency Through Advanced Technologies and Innovation.
Right. And this deep dive, we're really thinking about you, our listener, especially if you happen to work in the public service.
Exactly. The mission here is to unpack this source, pull out the key ideas, and explore how they might help you make a real difference for Canadians delivering services faster, more effectively. You know?
It's true. I mean, government work, let's be honest, sometimes gets that label, well, slow.
Uh-huh.
And fair enough, right? It's bound by necessary rules, democratic processes, being careful with public money, treating everyone equally. You can't just ignore that stuff.
Absolutely not. Those commitments are fundamental. But this article really pushes back on the idea that slow is like the only way it can be.
It suggests it doesn't have to be that way.
Pretty much. It looks at how governments around the world are actually finding ways to speed things up significantly. They call it achieving warp speed.
Warp speed. Okay.
Yeah. And crucially, they're doing it without sacrificing those essential commitments. Accountability, fairness, all of that.
So we're going to look at some examples, see what we can learn.
That's the plan. See what you can take away and maybe apply in your own work.
Okay, let's dive into that core idea then. Government at warp speed. What's the driver here? Why the need for speed?
Well, the article argues it's not just a nice to have anymore. Environmental factors, big societal shifts. The world's just moving faster, and governments kind of need to keep pace.
Makes sense.
They give a really potent example, wildfires. The scale, the frequency, it's increasing.
We certainly saw that here in Canada in 2023, devastating season.
Exactly. The article mentions the U.S., but the relevance is global. Agencies need to respond much, much faster than maybe they did in the past. Spotting fires, coordinating, getting help out. Speed is critical. It saves lives, saves property.
And the article acknowledges the inherent challenge, right? Governments aren't private companies just chasing profit.
Right. They have these broad public commitments, democratic processes, stewardship, equal treatment, all things that add layers and, yeah, traditionally can slow things down compared to the private sector.
That's the usual narrative anyway.
It is. But here's the counter-narrative from the article. Agencies worldwide are finding ways around this. They are speeding up programs, operations, sometimes dramatically.
How dramatically.
The article actually mentions improvements of up to 10 times faster in some cases.
10 times. Wow.
Through a progressive integration of technologies, really rethinking how work gets done and collaborating differently with partners. And again, the key point they stress is doing this without undermining democratic accountability or fairness.
Okay, so if governments in other places are hitting this warp speed, why should someone listening, working here in the Canadian Public Service, care?
Well, because ultimately it all comes back to the citizens you serve.
Right.
Speeding things up isn't just about internal efficiency. It means reducing the burden on people, on businesses, getting essential services out, faster permits, benefits, emergency aid, healthcare access, you name it.
So faster government means a better, safer life for Canadians?
That's the connection. It's about making government more responsive and effective. This article isn't just theory. It's showing how others are actually achieving that faster.
Okay, so what is warp speed government? Let's get into the how. The article talks about convergence. What's that about?
Yeah, convergence is key. It's not just picking one tool, like
Right.
saying, oh, let's use AI.
Right.
Convergence means bringing different things together at the same time. Technology, yes, but also changes to processes and smart policy or regulatory tools. It's the combination that really unlocks the speed.
Ah, okay. So it's like a multiplier effect. 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing.
Exactly. Think about the tech they mention. RPA, robotic process automation, and data analytics. Those help automate the boring, repetitive stuff, cut down processing times, reduce paperwork. Then there's better data sharing, breaking down those silos between departments or even different levels of government so information flows smoothly.
Always a challenge, the silos.
Oh, absolutely. And then, of course, AI, including generative AI, which is everywhere now.
How are governments actually using AI to speed things up, according to this source?
Well, several ways. Improving interactions like better chatbots or getting people the info they need faster. Analyzing huge amounts of input like public consultations. Automating tasks, generating reports, drafting standard letters, even helping write code.
So freeing up people.
Yeah, augmenting human capacity and suggesting tailored solutions based on data. It helps process information way faster.
And the article stresses it's the combination that matters. It gives examples like mixing digital tech with human-centered design.
Right, designing from the user's perspective.
Plus using evidence for policies and smarter contracting. What does that mix achieve?
Big drops in wait times, for one. Or another example they give. Combine RPA, AI, human-machine teaming.
Teaming, like people and tech working together.
Exactly. Plus, human-centered design, cloud tech, and machine learning. That kind of layered convergence can massively accelerate complex things, like processing grant applications.
So for you listening, maybe think about a process in your area, something citizens interact with. Could combining just two of these things, maybe automating one step and making the data flow better and looking at it from the user's angle, could that make a real difference?
That's precisely the question to ask. And the best way to see the potential is looking at real examples. The article breaks it down into three main areas where agencies are making strides.
Okay, first area, speeding up constituent services, making things faster and easier for citizens.
Right. And it starts with really understanding what people need and what's causing frustration or delays for them.
Makes sense. Start with the user.
They give a U.S. example, college financial aid forms. Apparently, it used to take students over 12 hours just to fill them out.
12 hours. Just for the application. That's a massive barrier.
Huge. But they redesigned the whole process, used human-centered design, and brought in tech, like automatically pulling tax info from the IRS.
Okay.
They got the time down to about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? From 12 hours? That's incredible.
And it saves info year to year. Think about the burden lifted off students. That's a direct impact.
Okay, that's a powerful U.S. example. What about closer to home?
Well, this is important. The article specifically highlights the Mental Health Commission of Canada in the Northwest Territories.
Oh, excellent. A Canadian example, what did they achieve?
They managed an amazing reduction in average wait times for mental health counseling.
Okay.
Cut them from 19 days down to just 4 days.
19 days down to 4. That's
Yeah.
life-changing for someone waiting for help. How did they do that? Was it just one magic bullet?
No, and that's the point. It was convergence again. The article says they brought in a new system for organizing and delivering services, and they streamlined how people first get into the system, the intake process.
Okay, system and process.
And they added new ways to get help, like drop-in sessions and e-mental health options. Plus, they set up an advisory group to make sure the services really fit local needs.
So process changes, new delivery models, technology, and community input.
Exactly. It wasn't just one thing. It was a mix. That's why convergence is so powerful.
Oh.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, you know.
That really shows how speeding things up translates directly into better access to critical support. Okay, what's the second area that the article highlights?
Fast-tracking business success. So this is about making it easier for businesses to invest, operate, and create economic activity by easing regulation and streamlining processes.
Permits and approvals. That's often a sticking point.
Definitely. Think about, say, renewable energy projects. Really important for climate goals, right? But complex, lengthy permitting can delay these things for months, even years.
Yeah, you hear about that a lot.
So Denmark tackled this for offshore wind farms. They created a one-stop shop. The Danish Energy Agency became the single point of contact for everything.
Instead of the business chasing multiple departments.
Right, they coordinated all internally. And the result? They can process these complex wind farm permits in just over 10 days now.
10 days for a wind farm permit compared to months or years. That's transformative.
It really shows what's possible when you rethink the whole approach.
Yeah.
Estonia also gets mentioned. They have an online platform for integrated environmental permits within 180 days. Still months, but way faster and simpler than dealing with multiple agencies separately.
Streamlining is key.
And check this out. Access Canberra in Australia. They had businesses needing event approvals having to give the same info to 17 different organizations.
17 times. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so they brought in a tell us once approach. Submit it once, and they handle distributing it. The article says it saved businesses tens of thousands of hours.
That tell us once idea seems so simple, but the impact is massive, especially for small businesses.
Totally. And there's a little inset box, a my take, from Portugal's former Secretary of State for the Environment. They built a single environmental licensing system, AUA. The motto was basically, one request, one certificate, one fee.
Simple and clear.
And they added helpful tools like a simulator so applicants could see expected timelines and even reduced fees if you use the digital system. It's all about making it easier and more predictable for businesses.
These examples really drive home how government can enable business by simplifying things. So again, for you listening, are there regulatory hoops you deal with where a one-stop shop or tell us once could make a difference for businesses or even for citizens?
Good question to ponder. Okay, third area. Government's internal operations, specifically procuring services and issuing grants. These can also feel notoriously slow sometimes.
Right, so how are they speeding these up?
Well, the U.S. National Institutes of Health, NIH, they fund tons of research. They used to manually sort thousands of grant applications to send them to the right review panels. Took 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, it seems labor-intensive.
Very. So they implemented an AI system. It can now allocate those applications with 92% accuracy.
92% accuracy.
Well, yeah.
Impressive. And how fast does the AI do it?
Less than a day.
Less than a day. Down from 3 weeks. Wow.
Yeah. And think about the staff time that frees up. Those people aren't just sorting anymore. They can do higher value work, like actually supporting the researchers.
That's a huge side benefit. What else?
Another U.S. example, the Department of Defense's Innovation Unit. Military procurement is famously slow, right? But tech moves fast.
Definitely.
So they're using different kinds of agreements. They call them other transaction agreement to sort of bypass some traditional red tape. Lets them get innovative tech from companies into use much faster. They're awarding contracts in about half the time.
Interesting. So even in complex, high-stakes areas like defense or major grant funding, rethinking the process and using the right tools can cut timelines significantly.
Exactly. And the principle applies broadly, right? Whether it's hiring people, processing claims, issuing licenses or grants, speeding up these internal government engines ultimately means faster service for Canadians.
Okay, so those are current examples. The article also looks ahead a bit, doesn't it, to a 10x future?
It does. It paints a picture of what could be possible if these trends continue and accelerate.
What kind of things are we talking about?
Really interesting stuff like proactive service delivery, Austria automatically enrolling parents for family allowance when a baby's born, no application needed.
Wow, government just gives you the benefit you're entitled to.
Imagine that. Or instant interactions. The U.S. Navy has an AI help desk resolving tech issues in under a minute. Ohio instantly grants Medicaid to newborns.
Instant coverage for newborns. That removes so much stress for new parents.
Absolutely. Or intelligent matching Estonia using AI for job matching, apparently leading to better long-term employment outcomes than human advisors alone.
Better outcomes. Interesting.
Yeah. More transparency, too, like the U.S. Census Bureau showing response rates on a public map in real time to encourage people to participate.
Using data to nudge engagement. Clever.
And intelligent automation just freeing up staff for more complex work. The DoD is testing AI that can actually draft contracts. Or even government using simulations.
Simulations,
Yeah.
like video games.
Sort of. San Diego has a digital twin of the city. They can use it to model, say, the traffic impact of a big construction project before they even break ground.
Government by simulation? That's pretty futuristic, but it sounds like these things are actually starting to happen.
Many are being piloted or implemented somewhere right now. It's not science fiction. It really paints a picture of a government that could be way more responsive, smarter, and just easier to deal with for Canadians. More effective, really.
Okay, this is all very compelling. If this accelerated future is possible, what are the practical takeaways? For someone listening right now, working in government, what can they start thinking about or doing?
The article suggests a few key things to focus on. First, keep pushing to break down those silos.
Right, the collaboration piece.
Yeah. Encourage data sharing. Integrate services across departments wherever possible. Easier access for citizens often means government needs to work more smoothly behind the curtains.
That's a constant effort, I imagine. What else?
Second, really look hard at existing processes, but, and this is critical through the customer experience lens, put yourself in the shoes of the citizen or the business trying to use the service.
Where does it get stuck for them?
Exactly. Where's the friction? Where's the confusion? Find the bottlenecks from their perspective, not just based on internal steps.
It's easy to get used to the way things are done internally, isn't it? Fresh eyes help.
Totally essential. Third, be willing to fundamentally redesign how work gets done. A 10x speed-up usually doesn't happen by just automating one little bit of an old process.
You need to rethink the whole thing.
Often, yes. Rethink the workflow. What's the goal? How should it work? Who does what, including how technology can help? How do humans and machines team up best?
So transform the process. Don't just digitize the old steps.
That's a good way to put it. And finally, focus on actively reducing response times, especially where it's critical. Using data analytics, like in the wildfire example, can speed up essential responses that can save time, money, property, sometimes even lives.
These feel like concrete principles, not just high-level policy, but things teams could actually discuss and try to apply.
Absolutely. They can be championed at various levels. It's about looking at your own area and asking, how could this idea work here? How can we make things faster or simpler?
So wrapping up this deep dive into the Deloitte article, the big message seems to be that much faster, much more efficient government is possible.
Definitely. It takes that strategic convergence, bringing together technology, real process change, and smart policy or regulation.
And for you, our listener, working hard to serve Canadians, hopefully this gives you some inspiration and maybe some practical ideas. It shows how you can be part of making government work better, faster, and have a bigger positive impact.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Thinking about all those examples, the 10-minute form, the 10-day permit, the instant benefits, the AI assistance, whereas just one spot in your own work, maybe even a small one, where applying a principle like tell us months, or redesigning a process from the outside in, or just finding a smarter way to share data could unlock a real gain in speed or simplicity.
And what would that faster, simpler process mean for the Canadians you're helping? Something to think about.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
See you next time.